magnificent Corvette racing team. I don't know how many of you were at Daytona, but man, what a show. That was some. How many of you have ever been to one of these Corvette races? All right, there you go. You got it. You got it.
How many haven't? Well, what are you thinking? Well, thank you, Henry. I guess I completed the introduction, although I did love the term magnificent. Yeah, that pretty much sums it up, doesn't it? Yeah. You know, I want to get this housekeeping out of the way, because it's the most important thing for me, and it's important that you know that what Tommy and I do, all right, is totally facilitated by you guys, all right? You guys drive the race program. Today's a perfect example. You look around at race fans that have driven down the museum and are out here supporting what we do. We get the same kind of turnout at our Corvette corrals at the racetrack. We get the same kind of enthusiasm demonstrated to our management virtually every place there's a Corvette. And you guys are the cornerstone, and you have been absolutely extraordinary in your efforts in helping us build this program to what it is today. We couldn't do it without you. I'd like you to applaud for yourselves. Thank you. What we'll do today, we'll have a few opening remarks, both Tommy and myself, and then I think what I find to be the most enlightening and quite frankly the most fun is when we open it up to question and answers. And you guys that come to Corvette Corral, do we have Corral participants here? Well, then you've heard me say, you know, we'll talk about anything that's happened in the past and anything that's going on right now and anything that's going on in the future. And if we don't have a really good answer, we'll make one up that will be so convincing you won't know the difference. And I can tell you that both Taj and Harlan have enrolled in the DR Fehan School of Lying. All right, and they're pretty good students, not quite up to what the master's capable of, but they're working hard on it. So, starting off the season, we went to Daytona, and we had a pretty good Daytona a year ago. Not finishing where we would have liked, but we had cars that we knew would be competitive. We worked all year, and I think we brought some vehicles that pretty much were capable of getting the job done. And when you look at the extraordinary effort put forth by drivers, number one, obviously the crew guys, pit stops, our engineering staff, you know, I think we ended up winning that race by what, I mean, .532, or, I mean, it was you run it for 24 hours, and you win by a half a second. Hello. I mean, so anybody who thinks that there's a strategy to 24-hour racing, I can share with you openly our strategy. Green flag drops, hammer it. And there is no lifting. Every minute of every hour of all 24, these guys are foot to the floor. There is no, well, we'll dog it, stay on the same lap, blah, blah, blah. You can't risk any of that. You got to have a vehicle that has the durability, reliability, and performance. It's going to keep you up at the front for that entire duration. We followed that up with a good win at Sebring, and then followed it up with a podium finish at Long Beach, which, quite frankly, barring any other catastrophic occurrence or holy intervention, we weren't going to do any better than that, thanks to the sanctioning body. But that keeps us running on our points. Tommy's here today because he's in need of some deep psychological counseling. The four-car boys have been on a little bad run of luck lately, but we're working hard to get that changed. Tommy will talk a little bit about that. You know, this is not anything different than the three-car. For those of you who've been following us for a long time, a couple of years ago, they couldn't find their way home from church. And it's just the way this business works. 25% great car, 25% great team, and 50% good fortune. So, you know, it's a true measure of a team as to how hard they work when the dauber is down and luck is against them. And I think those of you that have watched us over a long period of time understand that there is never any give up in Corvette racing, and the number 4 car is right there along with it. So, Tommy?
Thanks, Doug. Good afternoon, guys. As Doug sort of started off, I want to do the same. You know, he talked about how important that you guys are for us, and you know, obviously for Doug's side, he sees all the numbers, and that all means a lot to him. But for us as a driver, you know, when you show up to the racetrack, you know that you have, you know, an army of fans behind you that are pushing you along, no matter if you guys are, you know, if you have a bad day, a good day, you guys are there for us, you know, for every race, every test session. You know, and that stuff, you know, at first, one of the first things Doug said to me was, when I signed with the team, he said, "Are you ready to be a rock star?" And I kind of said, yeah, okay, right, whatever. And then I went to the first race, and my eyes were wide open. I was like, wow, that's exactly what I feel like. I mean, you guys, you know, on all my social media stuff at the racetrack, you know, you guys seem to know more about what I'm doing than myself, which is scary sometimes, but it's cool. It absolutely is cool. It's fun. It's fun to see that, you know, that we have a passionate fan base behind us. You guys obviously love your cars first and foremost, and we're just sort of an extension of that. So thank you guys. We definitely appreciate that. And it makes these times when us in the 4 car aren't doing so well, you guys don't talk about that. You talk about how great we did 3 years ago and how awesome that one race was, and we can think back for a moment and go, yeah, that did feel pretty good that day. So yeah, as Doug said, you know, us in the 4 car, Oliver and myself, we've had a bit of bad luck is the best way to put it. Trying super hard, you know, we in many cases probably trying too hard in certain scenarios, and you know, Oliver and myself, we want to win. And the good thing is right now that our teammates are sort of picking up for our slack right now. They've been on a tear. They've been winning races, and really just everything is going their way, and they're working hard for that for sure. But definitely have some good fortune going their way, and obviously has had some stellar drives from all their guys. Antonio's been a stud the last year and a half. Put in some seriously high pressure scenarios. Daytona's a great example this year. You think, as Doug said again, I mean, only a half a second at the end of the race there, but when you kind of watch the last 2 hours play out, they had a pretty good lead. I mean, it was nothing comfortable. It wasn't laps. It was maybe 30 seconds. And for how our GT class has been for the last couple of years, 30 seconds is a lot. So you're still driving really hard, but you can cruise a little bit. You can be a little bit more careful in traffic. And then, of course, with 30 minutes to go, caution comes out, and that's obviously the last thing you want to see when you're 30 seconds ahead. So definitely, you know, at that point, our race was pretty much done. Oliver and myself, we were in contention there to win, and you know, I definitely felt a little bit inside, like, okay, yes, we've kind of got this monkey off our back. We're right there. You know, we have a shot to win this. And then a DP car decided he wanted to stop driving, and unfortunately, I was one in the car and just gave him a little love tap. But I tried to love tap his left rear tire, which doesn't work out very well usually. So I ripped a bunch of bodywork off, and that was sort of the end of our race. And you know, I can look back on it and I can say, you know, I can look at it and say, I could have done things way differently there, and we still would have been in the race. You know, I felt like at the time I was doing the right thing. I had just passed our teammates, which felt good a little bit. Safely, of course. Of course, I would never get close to our teammates. That's rule number 1 in racing. You never hit your teammate. And we tried a couple times at Daytona to do that, but didn't quite manage it, thankfully. But just past Jan, I thought it was a great move. Went around the outside in traffic, and I thought, yes, here we go. 2 hours ago in the race, we're in the lead. This is perfect. And then I went to turn left the next corner, and the car in front of me didn't go, and I hit him, and I thought, this is not perfect. So, anyways, that was our race. You know, again, like, you know, last year was tough for us. It was great for the team. You know, 3 car was amazing. Manufacturer's championship for Chevrolet. So that was perfect. We contributed maybe once or twice, so we had a little small part in that. The 3 car guys again last year just had a great season. Now us in the 4 car, you know, we're working really hard to really kind of turn this around somehow for us. And the best part is obviously we have a great sort of measure with the 3 car guys. They're just chugging along like everything's easy. And you know, there's times when you feel like this is easy for us, but there's times when we think, what's going on? I don't know what's going on. We're doing everything we think is right, it's just not working for us. But I can tell you, we're having conference calls almost weekly with our engineers, and I'm talking to Oliver all the time, and talking to Brian Hoy, my crew chief, and we're looking for every little possible thing to kind of get this monkey off our back. So we're close. I really feel good about Laguna. I feel good about Le Mans. Both those races, I think that we're doing all the right things right now to make those races really good. So fingers crossed, we'll have a great race at Laguna.
But rather than me having to rail on endless things you may or may not be interested in, let's go ahead and open up for questions and answers, mostly questions. And then if there's something that keys a memory or a thought with me that needs some expansion, I'll do that. So we'll start, I see some in back, we'll start right down in front. Yes, sir?
How much of pain in the rear end is the sanctioning body with the restrictors they put on it?
How much a pain in the rear end is a sanctioning body? Well, massive. Okay. Yes. I've been called in the office more than once. Last year was a learning process for everybody. Okay. We had some things take place that we couldn't fathom the reasoning behind it, and we questioned that. And I'll be very candid. We didn't get answers that were very satisfying to me. I mean, it looked to be very arbitrary, and it looked to be outcome-based, not performance-based. In the off-season, the sanctioning body went to work on that, okay, and came up with what I thought was just a great improvement. They came up with a formula that was data-driven, which it really needs to be to a large extent. And it looked pretty good. And thus far, I'm reserving judgment, which gives them the benefit of the doubt, and I'm doing that because I think we're headed in the right direction, all right? Quite frankly, anything would be an improvement over last year, and they have managed to deliver a slight improvement, which pretty much qualifies itself as anything. The disappointing thing was what we saw took place at Laguna Seca, which was a 25 kilo weight reduction for the BMW, which ordinarily is not a huge thing, except it really is a huge thing on a street race, like Long Beach. That hurt us there. And normally our car works pretty well there, and it did. We went faster than the track record this year, both cars, which is a testament to the work that we had done. But when you take, 45 pounds off somebody in a street race, that's hard to compensate for. They got a different result than us winning, which obviously is good for the series, not necessarily good for us. So the jury will stay out, and let's see. There's some things in place that are very promising, and so I'm gonna hold off until we get a little further into the year before I issue any kind of edict throwing down on what they're doing or applauding them for what they're doing. But I do know that they're trying. They're working very, very hard to get better, and we're working very, very hard to help them get better. So, yes.
Is there a schedule for the balance performance adjustments, or they just do it when they feel like it's
There is a schedule for the balance performance adjustment, and it is whenever they feel like doing it. So, yes to both your answers. Yes, sir?
How does it work to integrate the third driver for the endurance races, and why does pace so go over the wall?
All right, here we go. I'll let you handle the first part.
So the question was about integrating our third drivers for Daytona, Sebring, Le Mans. The 3 car, we'll have Ryan Briscoe in the car. He was in the car for Daytona and Sebring. We'll be in the car for Le Mans for them. And in the 4 cars case, we had Simon Pagenaud for Daytona and Sebring, and then we'll have Jordan Taylor in for Le Mans in our car. So I know Jordan's looking forward to that because now he can finally stretch his legs in the race car. But really for that, basically, we'll have some like a sort of a pre-Le Mans test coming up soon here, where we'll have Jordan come and he'll sort of drive with us a little bit in sort of the trim of the car that we'll run at Le Mans. So that'll be a little bit of an introduction again to him. But Jordan's driven into the car now the last couple of years, and so he's got a pretty good feel for this Corvette. And you know, obviously for him, the first year is tough because it's kind of all new, but now he's been here for a number of years. He knows what the track's like, the car's like, so that integration is a lot easier. For Ryan, it'll be a little bit different once we get to Le Mans, because I don't think he's driven a GT car at Le Mans. So it'll be a bit of a change for him. He's raced there in the past in prototype cars, but not in a GT car. So you know, there's little bits and pieces for these guys that they're maybe not comfortable with or not used to. You know, obviously it'll be a bit different for Jordan now working with Oliver and myself, and for Ryan it'll be different just to kind of get accustomed to a GT car at Le Mans. So both those guys obviously are total pros, and you know, they've done their homework, and once they get there, it'll be, you know, maybe 10 laps and then they'll be up to pace again. So it's, again, like I said, it's a little bit of a challenge for some of these guys, but for the most part, it goes pretty quickly. And about Binks, something or other, I didn't hear that.
The question was, why is Danny Binks going over the wall? Because there ain't anybody there to stop him. That guy's got more passion than you can. I'd love to bottle some of that and sell it. Dan is a great leader. Back at the shop, he runs the shop for everybody. He crews a 3-car. Brian does Tommy's car. You know, he's been there for a long, long time. I've worked with. I got to know Danny. I think I met him in 1989 when I got sent out to Cars and Concepts to straighten out the Trans Am program there. And he was just a young man, and single, wasn't married, had no kids. So I watched him actually grow it up into where his son now is, worked for us for a little bit, and now is out working on the Nissan, the new LMP1 Nissan car, Philip. He just has a huge amount of passion for what he does, provides a great deal of both emotional and physical leadership to the team. So he will know when it's time for him not to go over the wall anymore, and I can tell you, now is not the time. There's no quitting this guy. He's still on a mission. Yes?
Tommy partially answered this, but, you know, the prototypes have been having pretty good years so far with the Corvette too. Action Express, you know, Wayne Taylor Racing and all that. And I understand you share drivers on occasion. But is that a whole different world, or do you get a chance to interact with those folks a lot other than just on the race track? Because it is part of the Corvette family.
Okay. Did everybody hear that? Okay. The question was referring to the good year that Daytona prototypes are having, the Chevrolet powered Daytona prototypes, which they are. And do we have a chance to interface with them? Is there a direct connect, or are they kind of a separate entity? They live in a different world. It's a separate entity. We as a race team formally do not. You know, we are a wholly owned Chevrolet race team, okay? Chevrolet owns this team. It is the only team that they own in all the racing that they do. We are it. The DPs are all independent racers that happen to run Chevrolet engines and have purchased Corvette bodywork. So the level of input we have into it is dramatically reduced in comparison to what Corvette racing is, and obviously the output we receive, I mean, it's unnecessary, and you know, there's not. The way it's set up right now works really well for everybody. Independent business guys don't like to have people meddling in what they do. That's what made them successful independent business guys, okay? And so it's just, they've found their balance, and it's working out really, really well. We don't try and go there. We have no reason to go there. They're doing just fine what they're doing right now. But and speaking of Action Express, which is amazing, because those of you who know me, are in Canada, I'm not a huge fan of Daytona prototype racing with the Corvette banner on it. I think we represent Corvette racing, and we don't need any help from anybody else. But it's a great marketing strategy to have additional Corvette stuff out there, and I think that's undeniable. But when you look at this Action Express team, they have finished every single lap of every single race since the inception of Daytona Prototype. That is impossible to do, and they've done that. And so I have to take my hat off to that. That's incredible. And then obviously the Ricky Jordan deal over at Wayne Taylor. And Wayne's near and dear to my heart. I won a championship with Wayne back in 1996. You know, you're getting old when you got your kids driving for you now. The question is, why am I even showing up to the wall anymore? Not why is Danny going over? So we're very pleased with what they're achieving. And I think it brings some additional and some added interest to the Corvette fan. Okay, I'm just naturally very protective about what we do in our group, and I always will be. So, yes.
Question for Tom. Sorry. Right before you get in the car, what do you do to prepare?
The question was, just before I'm getting in the car, what do I do to sort of prepare myself for driving the car? That's changed a bit over the years. When I first started racing, I was thinking, don't screw up, don't screw up, don't screw up, don't make a mistake. And I still think that every now and then now, but now, you know, we're so sort of involved in what's going on in the race, and we're up there with our engineers talking about what the plan is for the race, and you know, what's our strategy for the rest of the race? Are we saving some fuel? Are we trying to go 2 stints on tires? You know, what are we doing? So as I'm sort of getting ready to get in the car, I've just come from talking to my engineer about what this plan is, and that's what I'm thinking through my head is, okay, these are all the things that I have to do throughout this 2 hours in the car, this 1 hour in the car. And sometimes it's as simple as, we're in third, you gotta get to first. That's the plan, you know, go as fast as you can. And sometimes, like at Le Mans, the plan is more complex than that. So for the most part, I'm thinking about what my job is essentially, you know, in the car once I get in the car. But there is sort of this 2-3 minute period where I'm sort of up on the pit wall, and I'm just thinking about, I'm watching the cars go by a little bit, and I go, that car sounds pretty good, and I'm thinking, you know, this is pretty cool, I gotta drive race cars for a living. So I still, every now and then, have those moments where it's just, I'm not thinking about driving a race car, I'm thinking about, oh, I'm having fun, this is pretty cool, you know, and that's a good time. You know, usually you're up there in the pit walls beforehand, and you try to relax a little bit probably, and you're just talking to the crew guys and cracking jokes, and then all of a sudden here comes the car, and it's time to go.
Nigel?
2 questions. First one, do you think that the DP cars doing like Corvette in the series is going to hurt the advanced performance? I.e., they don't want Corvette being super fast. Second question is about the chassis.
The first question is, do we think that by having Daytona prototypes excel and win races and championships, is that going to have an adverse effect in the mind of the sanctioning body as far as it comes to allowing Corvette GT have that same level of success? In other words, is Corvette going to be capable of winning 2 championships in the same year? I don't have the answer for that. I can tell you what I think from a pure marketing standpoint. You know, it would probably make sense to spread that around a little bit, you know, and I'm not saying that they would necessarily do that. I don't think that it was a bad thing for them last year to have Porsche win a GT championship and Chevrolet win the Daytona Prototype Championship. That keeps Porsche coming around and spending the TV money, and, you know, there was an effort to, you know, everyone was saddened when Viper departed. But that isn't to say that a huge effort wasn't made to help them try and have a successful season so they would stay. You know, they're in a very difficult position. Hard for me to get in their head, and only time will tell. I mean, I'm wholehearted believe we need 2 championships. You know, if you earn it, you work for it, and you win it, you ought to be able to get it. Artificially controlling performance, outcome-based performance changes, really violates the true level of sportsmanship that sports car racing's had since its very inception. You know, it's when you look at the people involved and the camaraderie and the family-like approach that's extended just from internally in Corvette racing, but throughout the paddock, those who go to the races know that, you know, we're buddies with everybody. You know, we're one happy family. We know that everybody's got to be pulling on an oar to move the boat forward. We found out what happened when we went and dominated every place, and we put GT1 out of business. We're the last ones that want to put GT Le Mans out of business. So we have to be willing to take it in the shorts every once in a while to help the other guy. You know, this is socialism in racing. To take it away from those that got it, give it to those who don't. You know, if that's what it takes for us to continue to have fun, you know, we're going to do that. So I can't speak for them, but, you know, like I said, from a pure marketing perspective, when things come out and it's spread more evenly around, I mean, that's probably not a bad thing. So, and the second half of your question was? Oh, the new chassis, yeah. We do have 2 new chassis on the plates. The rules are changing in 2016. We have to have a car ready to go over to France, to Michelin. Where's our Michelin guys here? I saw them hanging around someplace, yeah. They have a test track over in France called Le Doux. Can we all say that? Le Doux. And we will be there in September, late September, doing Le Mans balance of performance between all new vehicles. The major difference in the new chassis is that the rules are requiring to have an overhead escape hatch in the car. An escape hatch is kind of a misnomer. It's not designed for anybody to escape necessarily, but what they want to do is be able to lift the roof up and have an access hole in the roll cage sufficient enough that they can slip in a backboard down in between the driver and the seat before they begin their normal extraction of the driver. Okay? So in order to do that, that requires a complete restructuring of the roll cage. And when you do that, because the roll cage plays such a significant role in the superstructure of the car and the stiffness of the chassis, that's a complete redesign and complete rebuild. So it sounds easy, you just make a hole in the top of the roll cage, but it's a monumental task to undertake and have it be done. And in the effort not only to improve the safety, but if we've got a chance to improve the stiffness, we're going to do that. And I think we've achieved that with what the guys have done over the winter. There'll be a few minor tweaks to suspension pickup points, stuff that would not even be visible, you know, to the naked eye. The question is that you heard that the seat was changing as well, that they were going to require the NASCAR-style head restraint side wings. That is true. And it's also true that that is going to provide a significant encumbrance to getting these guys in and out of the car. Obviously, the safety of it is undeniable. It's what we need to have. We have the seat we use, for those of you who follow us know, it's a hollow seat. It's a clamshell seat that has holes in the back, and we pump air conditioning into that seat, and it blows through the back of the seat, cools the drivers from behind. They also have cool air in their helmet, and we cool the cockpit. That seat was designed and developed by Brett Miller and homologated through the FIA, and that's an extensive process to go through to get approval of a seat. You have to build a test sled in a certified lab. I mean, it's a typical government deal, you know, 80 over retail and no different result than if you did it yourself. The new seat we're working on, we're trying to develop a side restraint that actually has an automatic flip away. All right, that when the car stops, this flips back, the driver's able to get out, new guy in, done, locked back into place. So that's what we're working on, and yes, we do have to have that. So one way or the other, we're going to try and A, have something that delivers the required safety improvements, and B, doesn't necessarily negatively impede Tommy's ability to get in and out of the car. Say again? I've tried to do that for the last 25 years for a lot of different reasons other than safety. We're talking about ejector seats. You did what? Yeah, try that again. Next. Yeah. Okay, next question. Way in the back. Is that a yellow hat? Yes, it is.
Tommy, this question's for you. With all the sophisticated equipment, like the radar's been added and all the paraphernalia you got in the car, is it harder to drive or easier to drive? Does it make your job easier or harder?
It's easier. All those things that we have in the car now are done to allow us to focus more on what we're doing with the race car and driving it and racing people. and not having to sort of study a camera screen to figure out, is that an LMP car coming or is that a GT car? Is he faster? I can't tell. Let me get a little closer. You know, so all that stuff before you were having to really kind of study the camera, and now the radar system has allowed us just to focus on what's out the windshield more now. Because now with all the different colors and arrows and stuff like that show up that maybe seem complex when you just look at it, but when you use it in the race car, it makes things easier for us. You know, we have lights that flash in the car for us constantly that allow us just to focus what's happening in front of us, and less so, what is, am I sliding too much? Is the TC not working? What's going on? All those little lights and warnings, things like that, are all designed just to kind of help us just drive and not worry about all the little things that are happening.
I think the important aspect of that, the radar system, and all the other accoutrements that we put in the car that makes our life simpler, all of that falls under a broad range blanket we call safety. Anytime that we can take Tommy's attention and have him focus solely on driving, that improves safety, that improves performance, and that improves results. So although you may think it's just something that's just pretty cool electronic, the idea is to make his job single fold, looking out the front, stepping on the pedals and turning the steering wheel, not trying to figure out what the world's doing around him. So the simpler we can make that, the safer that car becomes. The safer it becomes, obviously the higher level of performance we're able to extract, up to and including the air conditioning, which is actually, although you think, well, that's a luxurious comfort feature, which it is, it also makes the car a lot safer, because these guys are able to operate at 100% performance level. Huge amount of scientific studies done on what happens to athletes' capabilities when they become overheated or put in an extremely warm environment, and it's a dramatic drop-off. We were the first to start air conditioning, and we happened to win the race that we had it because it happened to be on one of the hottest Le Mans ever. It was after that the sanctioning body said, we need to make air conditioning mandatory. So once again, Corvette leads the way, not in driver comfort, but in safety. So safety is the overriding thing here. And then pit crew refreshments. We have a cute little skirt for him. He'll be wearing pumps in the evening and some cute little sandals during the day. Yeah, it's all for me, mostly for me. I'm gonna share something with you. You know, I like to give you guys the inside scoop. You know, at the risk, of course, of losing my own job, which I come close to pretty much on a weekly basis, as you can imagine. Pratt Miller, in conjunction with Chevrolet, has developed a very advanced driver simulation computer, one of the most advanced in the world. It is just on the cusp of being implemented. It is a technology that allows us to put a driver in the simulator. That simulator stays in contact with us electronically at the racetrack. When we're on track making changes during testing and or during the race, those changes that the engineers think might work will be transmitted to the simulator. Driver in the simulator, Ricky, will actually run these changes real time to see what the effect is under that given track condition at that point in time. It'll get the thumbs up or thumbs down, and we'll be able to instantaneously be able to implement that in the race car. So, this is a technology that has been implemented by Formula One, but is limited to Formula One. We know of no other entity outside of Formula One that even has anything that approaches this. It'll be a huge competitive advantage for us. You know, we're going to be down here testing before we go to Le Mans, and that may be an initial run through on the simulator, because you're able to, down here we have to physically make the changes, go run them, and then have the drivers report back. If we have a report from a driver and the guy sitting up top in the engineering stand thinks it works, he's on the blower to the simulator, Ricky's running it. By the time Tommy gets done, we have a yes or no, or a definitive direction on where we need to go to make a change to make it better. It's instant feedback. It's real-time engineering feedback without having to actually do it on the race car. It's amazing technology, and we think it's going to be a big deal for us. wise. That's how Ricky is helping out. Sir? Well, the question is, and it's a legitimate question, how do you translate Ricky's capabilities to the other capabilities? Ricky has spent, and we'll be down here testing with it before them all, Ricky has spent considerable time in the race car. So we know his performance level falls right in our small grouping of performance level. When you have 4, 5, or 6 drivers, there's always one guy at any given track that's going to be the fastest, and there's only one guy going to be the slowest. The concept is to have it be as tiny a differential as you can possibly get. Ricky falls within that tiny differential. So it would be no different, essentially, than if Tommy were there, or Ollie were there, or Yan were doing the simulator, where he's fully qualified to do that. And the things you're looking for are things that drivers easily identify with. You know, mid-corner push, car loose coming off a 7, you know, feels real squirrely under braking. These guys give that feedback back. The engineers interpret what can be done. They phone it in. They put the setup on the car. Ricky goes and drives. He says the braking's way better. So he'll have a baseline from which to go. This simulator is sophisticated enough you can't tell you're not in the race car. Okay, so he'll be driving right along. He'll be driving the setup that these guys are driving while the race is going on. He'll be racing the race on the simulator. So he'll know when you make a change whether or not that's affected and how it's affected what they're doing driving-wise. It's a big job, but it's going to pay some benefits.
Are you working on it?
Yeah, how many pit stops? It depends how much he's had to drink before he got in the car, Walt.
Hey Doug,
Yeah.
Are you working on us being able to watch that here on?
Oh, you had to bring that up, didn't you? I was saving that for the end. Don't you have something to do? That was Wendell. You can't resist. I'm going to talk to them about that at the end.
Okay.
But thank you for reminding me. Yes, sir.
One, thanks for answering as repeating the question. Number 2, and this is rather mundane based on all of your presentation just now, how and why do you pick open wheel drivers for the third driver?
The question is, first of all, complimenting us on both repeating the question. Thank you. And why the heck are we picking open-wheel drivers to drive our race cars? I'm going to let Tommy give a little bit of feedback, and then I'll tell you exactly how we came to the conclusion we did.
Yeah, so the you know, for us, obviously we look at, again, the question was, you know, how did we pick? This year we had Simon Pagenaud in our car for Daytona and Sebring, and Ryan Briscoe. And again, as Doug has sort of just talked about, you know, when we look for third drivers and look for these guys, obviously you want someone that's fast, and you want somebody that you think can help you win these races. And oftentimes, obviously, now you can find guys that don't already have a job, basically racing in our series, and are then qualified enough to be quick in these cars. And we've seen over the years, as the team has tested different drivers, that, you know, obviously you look towards, okay, you know, where are the best drivers in the world right now that we have access to that can race these cars. And for us, the IndyCar guys oftentimes are the ones that, you know, are probably the best fit for who's the best. Now, some of these guys that have driven open cars their entire lives, they get a GT car and they're helpless. And there's some guys who are just accustomed to driving multiple different kinds of cars and suit driving our car. There's been a lot of drivers that have driven the Corvette and they just can't figure it out. There's something about the car, the way the car's set up, that it's not maybe easy at first for some guys, and for some guys it seems very easy. So you got to find the right guy who's comfortable in these cars. And when it came down to it, we knew from last year with Ryan Briscoe that he was fast. He has experience in a lot of different cars and was great last year for the team. And then Simon this year we needed somebody for our car, and Simon was high on our lists. The engineers do what they want pretty much, but they definitely asked us, you know, who do you guys think, Oliver and myself, who do you guys think that would be good in your car? And, you know, Simon was one name that kind of came up, and he did a phenomenal job. It was difficult for him at first, but he basically this happens a lot. You go through practice, and these guys are not really sure of themselves. They think they've got it figured out, but they're maybe second off still, and then they get in the race, and there's a high pressure situation, and all of a sudden, bam, they're just as fast as everybody else. So it's just a matter of finding the guys that maybe have GT experience, that are competitive. Obviously, we want the best that we can find, and so it's a fine balance there, finding guys that are quick, are comfortable in the car, that they understand how sports car racing and endurance racing work. It's not about going out and setting the fastest race lap every single time in your car. There's teammates, there's teammates, there's teamwork, there's all these different things that go into it. And Simon was a great addition for us. Was just a great person in general. So that was a good choice by these guys.
Specifically, Ryan had significant V8 supercar experience, so he had been used to driving sedan-style race car, GT-style race car, and I had known him for a long, long time. Personal relationships go a long way, and knowing the right guys can sometimes help move you forward, but at this program, just knowing the right guys isn't going to be enough. There are certain intangibles in our drivers that have to be met. There's a lot of really fast guys out there that will never race for Corvette, ever. Because they wouldn't be standing up here on the stage doing interviews, they wouldn't be down here doing this, they wouldn't be in autograph lines, they wouldn't come to the Corvette Corral. They don't get that part. They're ego-driven guys, I understand that. It's worked well for them, it doesn't work with us, and they won't be here. Ryan Briscoe fits the mold that we require at Corvette. He appreciates what we do, he respects what we've accomplished, he's proud. You saw him on the victory stand at Daytona. Guy was just beaming. He wanted Daytona 24-hour. You don't think that's important to him personally? Of course it is, and he knew when he came aboard that he could do that he had the potential to do that he had the opportunity to do that, and it paid dividends for him. Simon Pagino I met probably 15 years ago. First of all, as a human being, as a man, he is one of the finest people that I've ever met in my life. Honest, direct, hardworking, dedicated, and talented. He spent several years running in closed-wheel cars. They were Daytona prototype cars, and I think he was with the Duncan Dayton squad for a while. That's where I met him. Did remarkably well. Had indicated to me over time, if ever there was an opportunity there, I'd like to be considered. I'd like to at least try to be part of what you do. The opportunity arose. He came aboard and obviously acquitted himself remarkably well. And you only have to look at the fact, okay, that Roger Penske's almost as bright as we are at Corvette Racing, because he saw in Simon the same thing that I knew. And he's racing for Roger Penske right now. If you watch the race at Long Beach, you saw he runs up at the front right away. I mean, plug him in the car, the guy goes. Just a great individual. That's how we do it. It's not necessarily that we think open wheel guys are better than closed wheel guys. It's just that you have to judge each individual on their individual talent, skill set, and demeanor. And it's hard to find individuals that check all three of those boxes. We have them in both Ryan and Simon, and obviously with both Ricky and Jordan as well. So that's how we do that. Middle in the back, next to the young lady. You don't have to look around at you. Look at guys beaming. I have overachieved, he says. Yes, sir.
Speaking of third drivers, it was after Daytona, Jeff Gordon mentioned driving for Corvette.
Jeff Gordon mentioned driving, not necessarily for Corvette. Jeff Gordon mentioned that he probably wanted to do some sports car racing. You've kind of filled in between the blanks there.
Who else would he
Along with millions of others. I can tell you unequivocally, as we stand right now, I've not spoken to Jeff Gordon about racing Corvettes. But if I were Jeff Gordon and decided this was my last year in NASCAR, and I wanted to go sports car racing, and money wasn't an object, and I had a good buddy and business partner in Rick Hendrick, they are in business together as if all the drivers, seems to me I'd make a couple of phone calls. I know where I'd be going if I thought about winning. And that would be a pretty exciting deal. You know, I don't know, you know, if it were to happen, I don't know whether it'd be a plug and play, where we'd run out of Brad Miller, or whether Jeff had set something up on his own, utilize our equipment technology. I don't know. We're open to anything. I think it would be a great addition. It'd be fun for you guys. It'd be great for the series. I know he'd love it. So I think we're all looking forward to whatever that might be, but right now, no hard plans in place, which isn't surprising because he's on a mission. I think, he'd like to leave having won another championship. He's got nothing really left to prove there. He's taking the same track that Earnhardt Sr. wanted to do. He sees how much fun we're having and how great the racing is and how quality of products they are and how advanced they are compared to the dinosaurs that they drive. And quite frankly, we got better looking women hanging around the way. Most of whom have teeth. Not that I don't like NASCAR. I started in round racing. It was pretty clear to me early on I better move to sports car racing if I'm going to have a good time. It's paid off. So that's where I would get. Yes, sir.
Comments on the upcoming races?
Here we go.
Yeah, the question or the request was to talk about the upcoming races. And for us, obviously, next weekend is Laguna Seca. It's our last race before Le Mans. Le Mans for us is obviously sort of our biggest race of the year. It's one that we look forward to every year. It's a race that just the event itself, the whole week of Le Mans is incredible. If you ever had a chance to go to Le Mans, I absolutely recommend it. It doesn't matter if I'm racing there or not, it's worth going. It's a great, for the women, France, obviously, it's a great destination place to go to. For the guys, you got some great racing too. So it's just one of the best races that, you feel. That was the first time, talking about Doug saying I'm gonna be a rock star when I drive for Corvette Racing, that was the first time when I felt like driving race cars meant something to somebody. You go there and you see the drivers parade there on the Friday, and there's 20,000 people just to see you ride around in the back of old cars, and they're screaming for you, and they, want an autograph and everything. And that was a moment where I thought, wow, this means something to some people, and it meant a lot to me, but I didn't know that it meant that much to, the fans and all the history that Le Mans has. So, we're looking forward to that race. It's one that we run the cars quite a bit different than what we run here in the U.S. The car is the same car, obviously, but we run way less downforce. There's a lot of effort put into the setup of the car for that one race. And again, to Doug's point about the simulator, because it's such a different setup that we'll be able to run, some of these different options and different things, and the testing is so limited at Le Mans that to be able to run some of these different ideas that the engineers cook up is a huge advantage. So I'm really excited for that race. I am every year. I obviously would love to get back on the podium again. First time there with Corvette Racing, we won that race, so that was an incredible feeling that I definitely would love to experience again this year. And I would say right now for sure that I would give up every other Tudor race this year if we could win Le Mans. I would take that right now. So that's maybe not what Doug wants to hear, but I'd be happy. I'd be happy with a Le Mans win and nothing else for the rest of the year.
I'm good with that too. to two places I love to go. We're coming up Monterey, absolutely beautiful. I do a lot of cycling, great place to ride. Elkhart Lake, 3 Bs, beers, brats, babes, can't go wrong in Elkhart Lake. All right, but Le Mans is the holy grail. Le Mans is the holy grail. It touches me so deeply. Focusing very selfishly and egotistically on myself. Those of you who may be informed, last year I was honored and humbled to receive the Spirit of Le Mans Award. So thank you. And the only reason I could ever even be considered that was because of the hundreds of thousands of Corvette fans and obviously the stellar work that the team does. I'm just the guy fortunate enough to be in front of it. As a small boy growing up and loving racing and coming from a very, very, very humble background, mowing lawns to save up to buy Sports Car Graphic to read about this race when I was about 10 years old. And you read about it about 3 months after it took place, and the photos, of course, would be all black and white, and they go in this huge description of guys racing for 24 hours. I'm thinking, how would you ever race for 24 hours? I mean, I was going to races starting when I was 3 years old. They last for 20 minutes. How do you do it for 24 hours? Do they stop and the guys rest, or they put another motor in the car? As a child, I couldn't comprehend racing for 24 hours. I certainly couldn't comprehend ever having opportunity for any reason to travel overseas. I certainly couldn't comprehend that I'd ever attend the event, never participate in the event, let alone having the opportunity to win it 7 times, and then to receive that award is mind-boggling to me. I mean, it's just, this is the 17th year in which they've awarded that. It rarely goes to an American. I believe I'm only the 2nd American to receive that award. That's a testament to the hard work that these guys do. And it also provides me an amazing segue. Is Wendell still in the back there?
Still here.
Yes, he is.
Still
Okay.
listening.
You see how I had this worked in? How many of you, if any of you, planned to go on our Le Mans trip this year that got canceled? Okay, raise your hand even if you didn't, because I feel better about it if I see more. Thank you. Good. Because Wendell and I and Wendell's staff are working on something, and I want to just float this out there to see what the interest level might be and just create some kind of buzz. Don't have it nailed down, but it's something we're working on. I've convinced the ACO to help promote Le Mans in the United States that if they were to provide a live feed of the entire broadcast, commercial free, okay, and that if we could beam that in here, okay, and then we had some kind of Le Mans 24-hour party function for a couple days down here at the museum, where you guys would, of course, pay a huge amount of money in the form of a generous donation, totally tax deductible, to come on down and party and be able to walk in here at any time of night or day, watch what's going on. And we'll also, as an adjunct, have some Skype stuff set up so that from our pit box, whether it's Tommy, myself, or Danny, or whatever, during the race for a few minutes, we can come on Skype. We can talk to you direct right down here. Anybody be interested in coming down here and doing that? Well, we're working on that. I want to try and make that happen. I don't mean it to be a replacement for the lost trip, because I want you guys to come next year and visit firsthand. You need to do that. But in the absence of that for this year, I'm thinking we might be able to just pull this off, and I think it would be great. As a matter of fact, I'm thinking about not even going to the lawn, just coming and partying with you guys. It'll be way easier. And as long as we got Skype control, I mean, for what I do over there, I can just yell over the Skype thing as easy as I can stand for the pit and have a way better time.
He needs to sleep on the pit stand half the time anyway, so it wouldn't make a difference.
Just dreaming of victory. Sometimes it helps to visualize, and God knows these guys can use the luck, okay? A little silent prayer never hurt, right, Wendell? Huh?
Amen.
Okay, so what they confuse as sleeping is me in deep meditation and spiritual guidance seeking from above to help them. Remember, we won 7 times there. That's a serious amount of sleeping for me. So anyway, let's think about that, spread it around, see if we can generate some interest. If we can generate enough internal interest and I can get fortunate enough convincing my French buddies that it's something they ought to do, I think we could have a hell of a good party here. I think it'd be pretty cool. Okay. All right.
Do you think changing back to the traditional race numbers
Nigel. Do we think changing back to the original numbers at Le Mans is going to help anything? Yeah. As a matter of fact, I do, because what we're doing ain't been working. It can't hurt. It was an interesting dynamic, and we had the opportunity to do it, okay? And there's always a little bit of angst. You know, we tried changing numbers once before, if you remember, in 2003, during the 50th anniversary thing. We went to number 50 and number 53. We finished second that year, but at home in Detroit, you would have think like both cars blew up on the pace lap. I mean, there was just screaming and yelling and crying and angry. What's going wrong? We finished second at Le Mans, guys. Come on. So I got called into Gary Cowger's office, who was president of GM at that time. I don't think you know this story. He's a buddy of mine, okay? I mean, a buddy, as well as, the ultimate boss at that point in time. I get a call from him, he's up on the 25th floor, yeah, Doug, I need to come up to the office, I want to talk to you. Okay. And I go up to the office, walk in, I think, I don't know what this is about. Just now, he says, well, what the hell are you thinking? I said, it's hard to say, what are you talking about? I think of a lot of things during the day. Whose idea was it to make these cars blue? I said, marketing guy. It was totally the marketing guy. Red, white, and blue, Le Mans edition, thought it'd be good. I don't ever want to see those cars another color but yellow. You see what happens when you change the color? You change the color and we don't win. Yes, sir. Yellow it is. I said the same thing to the marketing guy before we went. So yeah, is there a little bit of that superstition involved? Yeah, absolutely. Good to get back to that old thing, and you know, there's some fun involved. If we go and we have good fortune this year, I'll be able to come back and tell you that was my genius idea to change back to the number, and that was the key to success. You know, at GM, you find something you think's going someplace, get yourself out in front of it, and you will succeed. Yes, sir.
Tommy, can you walk us through a historical perspective of your racing career?
Sure. It just wants me to kind of talk about how I got started racing and where I started, and then to get to where I am now. And to be honest, when I grew up, I played a lot of sports. Played soccer, baseball, lacrosse, soccer, things like that. And my dad owned a race team. He's been in racing since he was 16 when he came to the U.S. from Germany. And so I was around racing my entire life, but I didn't get in a go-kart and really even, well, my first time in a race car, I was 13 years old. He put me in one of his cars, and I went really fast in the straightaway and braked really early and was really careful. Which I'm sure he was happy about that, considering he let his 13-year-old kid hop in a $250,000 race car and said, yeah, sure, have some fun. But so at 15, I started in go-karts. I did go-karts for 3 years. I still to this day, I'm still sort of a bigger kid. If Fehan were here, he'd be down here somewhere, and you could see why he is fast in go-karts. Same with Antonio. I raced against Antonio in go-karts about 2 years ago, and he was massively faster than I was. And that's only because he had a better motor and he was lighter and stickier tires. So I did go-karts for 3 years, and in those 3 years I grew from probably 5'8" to 6'2" that I am now. So I gained a lot of weight, and I was winning races when I started, and all of a sudden I wasn't quite as fast anymore. So at that point, my dad put me in one of his cars. I went to, first I went to it's a scholarship shootout that BMW held in Spain. They invited 25 kids from North America to come here to win a scholarship to race in what they called their Formula BMW series. It was the first year for that series in the US in 2004. And I was definitely invited, mostly because my dad had a strong link with BMW, did all their racing for BMW in the US for a number of years. So I think they were like, hey, sure, invite your kid. I know he's racing go-karts, he's won some races, come on over. Well, I went over there, and I was against Graham Rahal, against J.R. Hildebrand, a bunch of kids now that are racing Indy cars, things like that. And for me, that was the first time where I was racing against kids my age. So anyway, they showed up, and I was one of the fastest ones there, and I surprised myself and my dad and a lot of other people. I think my dad thought, okay, this is the end of his career. I can save some money now finally. The go-kart thing was kind of expensive. And I come back home with a check, which was nice, but it was only about a 1/10 of what it was going to cost to race that whole next season. So I came back excited. Hey, Dad, I won one of these scholarships. And he was really excited, and then realized, oh, this means I have to spend a lot more money now. Damn it. But no, he was able, because he owned a race team, he was able to sort of subsidize a lot of that cost for me to go racing. So I had 3 teammates that year in Formula BMW and had some success. Well, it wasn't what I'd like it to be. I had one pole position at Cleveland, but still to that point, I was still a bigger kid. I mean, I'm sort of the same size I am now, and those cars being underpowered, it definitely didn't help me. Like at Laguna's sake, I had my worst weekend. The last race, I was 2.5 seconds off the pace, and I just come from Cleveland where I was on pole. So I knew that these cars weren't sort of meant for me. I was not comfortable in the car. My knees were in the bulkhead and things like that. So, anyways, my dad put me in one of his M3s for at the end of that year, 2004. My first race, qualified on pole. The last race on pole again, and won the race with my teammate was Kelly Collins at that race. He drove for Corvette for a number of years. So then that was again sort of my ticket the next year to race for my dad's team. I did that season, Grand Am, won a couple races, and then I was off on my own in 2006 driving in the American Le Mans Series for the Panos factory team in Multimatic. And I've been sort of racing GT2 cars ever since then. So I did 1 year with Panos. The next year I drove for Robbie Rahal in a Porsche in GT2. And then 2008 I went back with my dad's team. I still did some stuff with Rahal and World Challenge and an Aston Martin. But I did 1 year basically again with my dad's team. And then 2009 and 10 I drove again with Rahal and with BMW. And then at the end of the 2010 season, when it came time to do a contract again with them, I got a nice phone call from Mr. Fehan and asked if I was available. And I was, because the deal that they were going to offer me the next year wasn't, it was the same except just less racing. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to race more. I felt like I'm kind of getting better and getting better and getting better, and I want to keep racing. And got that nice phone call from Mr. Fehan and came down to Sebring and tested the car and had a nice chat with Doug at the end of the day. And I've been a Corvette driver ever since. And that was the best decision I've ever made in my racing career by far, because I was having some success with those other teams, but nothing like I've had with Corvette. So I'm very happy that I'm here and hope I stay here for many years to come.
I don't think Tommy knows what I'm about to tell you, but I had watched him. First of all, I've known his dad for a long, long time. And his dad is a larger-than-life road racing character / legend, all right? Speaks with a heavy German accent. He's a big guy, and it's just, he's fun to be around. He's fun to be around. So we had been on the lookout for an American driver, okay? And we had raced against Tommy for a little bit. I had watched him. I had kept an eye on him. And people kept, chattering in my ear. We checked out Tommy, checked out Tommy, checked out Tommy. Yes. So we were down at an event that Michelin sponsored called Motorsports on Main. Any Michelin guys here? Do you remember Motorsports? Were you there when we had Motorsports on Main? So we put that together. I thought it was a great event. They blocked off a couple of streets in downtown, nowhere, South Carolina, wherever you guys are.
Greenville.
Cute little town, by the way. No, it is pretty cool. Greenville. Yeah. Some place they call it Greenville. Down there it's Greenville. Okay? And it is a beautiful place, no kidding. And a lot of the teams, it was like the week before Atlanta, a lot of teams brought down race cars, they put it on display, and then they invite the citizenry of Greenville to come on down and got an association with the race teams and help sell tickets for Atlanta. So I had my Corvette display down there, and we're all set up, and it's grandiose. And I'm looking down the road a little bit, and I can see BMW pulls up. They have a fifth wheel, and a car pulls out in a little pop-up. Not quite the grandiose thing that we put forward, although they live in Greenville, they have headquarters there. I expected they were going to have some huge thing. They didn't. And they get out, and the guy who's pretty much setting up the pop-up tent and arranging the literature and putting up the table is this guy. He was low man on the totem pole, okay? Let Tommy do it. He was there the entire day, shaking hands, signing autographs, working that display, all by himself. Essentially all by himself. I said right there, this guy's got that third box checked. He's the guy that we want for Corvette racing. He cares about racing, he's passionate about the fans, and he's here doing yeoman's duty. That was a year before that we called him up. So, Tommy, great job. The other thing is, I don't think you know this story either. We tested Sebring, okay? And he does a great job, and we're going to go home and digest data and make a decision. I'm not 10 minutes outside of Sebring heading back to the airport and the phone rings. And I look on my thing and it's Tom Milner Sr. Okay? Now, and you'd have to know his dad. This is still funny if you don't. But keep in mind, we have a very good relationship. I see it's him. I answer the phone and I don't say hello. I said, Tom, let me be perfectly clear. You get one phone call to me regarding your son and Corvette racing, and this is it. So make it good. Oh, no. Just one thing. I want to know one thing, just one thing. Is this for real? I said, Tom, if it wasn't for real, why would I have him down here? So it's for real. I said, it's for real. How did he do? Is that your dad? Is that your dad? And I want to tell you what, he kept his word. He's never called me about Tommy or Corvette racing again. He's lived up to his word. That was a fun moment in time.
I thought that you were going to say that, because Jan and I had a little bit of a scuffle at Laguna Seca one of the years previous. And it sounds like you guys just keep hiring drivers that Jan pisses off, basically. Because Laguna Seca a couple years ago, I'll make it quick, real quick. He hit me and wrecked me, and I was really mad about it because I'd already had a bad race, and I was just about to fix it because Bobby Rahal was on the radio to be mad at me for how bad the race had gone so far, and I thought, okay, we're back in it. And then Jan hits me and wrecks me, and I'm out of the race. I was so mad. I got out of the kitty litter, and I'm driving around, and now I'm trying to chase Jan down. I can see him. I'm on newer tires. I'm gonna wreck him. And I can see he's up there, and all of a sudden he pits. I thought, that's weird. And when he came back out, I'm driving around. There's like 10 minutes left, and I see him coming out of the pit lane, and I've just passed the pit out, and I thought, I'm waiting for him. I'm gonna get him. So I slow down, and he slows down, and I slow down more, and he slows down more. And so at that point, I knew he knew that I was mad at him. So I just drove around, and that was it. He stayed in the car. Dan Binks came down and like kind of protected him a little bit. So I wasn't gonna mess with Jan because he's easy, but Dan's here, and a lot bigger than I was. So I said, okay, well, I'll leave that alone. And then I didn't know this, but Jan later on, he said, oh yeah, I remember that. I radioed in the car saying, I think the BMW's mad at me. He's like, I've done this before. I know what it looks like when I wait for somebody, and he's waiting for me.
Like I said, we'd like to share with you the inside stuff. We're getting close to the end here, so let's do one or two more if you've got something. Yes?
I was wondering if Doug, you and the drivers and the rest of the team ever get any formal recognition from corporate guys at GM in Detroit, and if you have any interesting stories to share with that.
None that I would care to share with you. Story was, do we get any recognition from the guys in Detroit, and are there any interesting stories that you would like to share with us? Oh, I got a ton I'd like to share, but I still got a couple of years left to go. We do get recognition. Obviously, when we do well, I mean, I actually have a boss, and he has a boss, and that guy has a boss. So I'm like 4 levels down. When we win, okay, generally speaking, my boss and my boss's boss will be on the telephone, either texting or calling each one of us, congratulating us on what we do. The reason for that is because their boss is going to be calling them up saying, well, what's going on? So if we do well, then in the eyes, it kind of flows uphill a little bit there. And it's nice to know that they're watching. They are totally engaged. When we get done with a qualifying session or race session, I personally send out to 19 different GM executives the finishing results of those races. That's out instantaneously, so they know where we are right after qualifying and then right after the race event. So we have a pretty deep communication systems within the company to keep them apprised of how we're doing. They're immensely proud. You go down into the Corvette Group Engineering, and our race posters are all over the walls, and we're widely known and widely accepted inside the GM racing community, which was our GM production and design and marketing. that was part, if you look at the original proposal, which was called R99, which I put together back in '96, weaving the race program into various entities inside the corporation was going to be paramount in its ability to maintain longevity and continuity, which creates success in racing. When you get into something, you do it for 1 or 2 years and then you get out, you're never going to be successful doing that. And so we've been very successful in guiding this team to where we touch people in design, and we touch people in styling, and we touch people in engineering. And when you can do that, it makes it very difficult for them to call an end to this. And we witnessed that when we went through our bankruptcy. We had 9 race programs at that point in time. Only 2 survived, NASCAR and Corvette racing. NASCAR took about a 50% hit, and we maintained our level of funding. And this wasn't internal, this was outside actuaries that had no dog in the fight, no particular love for motorsports, but they recognized what we brought. My mantra has always been, it's way more than a checkered flag and a trophy, and you guys are representative of that. You are way more than a checkered flag and a trophy. You're the customer. At the end of the day, our job is to sell cars. So, yes, we do get that recognition. Long way to the answer. We got time for one more. Yes.
Any changes to the schedule next year for tracks or venues?
You know, it's too early to say what next year's schedule will be, but I am led to believe that it will be extremely close, very similar to what we're currently doing. Probably won't be any additions or deletions as we know right now. That was easy, so we can do one more. Well, GT, the question is the GT, Le Mans GT1, whatever we want to call them, the Pro Series Vipers went away, what happened, and you heard that they're going to be at Le Mans. They will be at Le Mans this year with their GTM car, okay? 1 pro driver and a couple amateurs or whatever it is. You know, I'm pretty good friends with the guys who run that program at Chrysler, and it got approval to run for Marchione on the IFCOM that it didn't really cost any money to do it. So they were always under tremendous budget constraints to do it. Keep in mind the design of the car dates back to 1988. All right, there haven't been any significant improvements in the car since then from a design perspective. It's a limited production car. At that point in time, they had more than a year backlog sitting in a lot someplace. They weren't selling a tremendous amount of cars, although you could argue that it served as a halo brand for the corporation. It should have been continued, which is what the argument I would have made. But when that argument got to the top, it was not one that carried much water. So just from a product relevance standpoint, overall sales point versus cost, they were unable to continue with that. And that saddened everybody. I mean, we wanted them to stick around. They were great competition. Detroit bred, it harkened back to the old days of Viper versus Corvette. It was a great catalyst for you guys doing story and photo work. So we'll keep our fingers crossed, you know, with the addition of, I'm surprised you haven't had any questions about Ford, but Ford will be coming next year. You'll see an announcement at Le Mans that they'll be bringing their new supercar next year. That's good for everybody, good for them, good for us, good for racing. We're loving it. And who knows what evolution will take place with Chrysler considering coming back. You know, if I were running the show there, I'd be developing a new product in line with a Corvette or a new Ford or Porsche or whatever, and then I would be racing it both here and abroad. So we'll see what happens with them. They're gone now. They're not forgotten. They'll be missed, and I'm hoping that they come back, and I think eventually they will. You can't stay out of this market long. Ford recognized that. They tried like crazy to stay out, and the pressures got so great they just knew they had to do it. And they're back now, and that's going to be a good thing for everybody. I want to close by thanking you guys. I want to thank you for coming down here and supporting the museum. I want to thank you for supporting my pet love, the Motorsports Park, which I think anybody had a chance to get on there. Is it not everything we thought it would be more? The staff here that made that happen, the direction and leadership that Wendell Strode provides. He is the #1 enabler of projects of that magnitude, Number one, to be conceived, number two, to be planned, and number three, to be implemented. We are blessed to have Wendell Strode as our leader. With that, I'll close. We're going to go to the auction. We run a couple minutes over. Tommy and I both have to beat feet to get to the airport. I want to stick around for a few minutes and pick your pockets on some stuff. Just don't be getting up and leaving without spending some money here, dude. Don't even be thinking about it. I deal with guys like you at every auction. Oh, auction time? I got to go. Grab my wallet. This all goes for a good cause. So thank you all.
Thank you, Doug.